Hi, my name's Mark Berry and I'm with Done Training. Today we're going to look at XAML in a WPF application. Here I am in Visual Studio. I'm going to start by making a new project. XAML has 4 different versions. There's one for WPF, Silverlight, XPF, that would be for an Office document like Word or Excel, and Windows Workflow. The XAML that we're going to use today is a WPF application, but I also want to mention there's this WPF browser application. That too is full WPF XAML. It's just hosted in Internet Explorer. That's different from Silverlight. But today we're going to focus on XAML inside a WPF application. So let's name our application XAML. XAML stands for Extensible Application Markup Language. XAML is a very declarative programming language. What you're going to see here is that we are going to use this XML down here. This is XAML down here on the bottom, to describe the UI elements inside of this. We could also use the designer. These two things are kept in sync. I can pull an item from the toolbox and drag it onto the window, or I could type it down in the XAML directly. The first thing I'm going to do is we have a grid on this window by default, and I'm just going to change our default container here to be a stack panel instead. And I could add a control on here, like I might have done for a Windows Form application. And here I have a button that says Test. I could also have gone to my toolbox and added something like a combo box or button by dragging and dropping. You notice that it keeps these two things in sync, and as I select one of the items down in the XAML pane, I also get it selected up in the designer as well. Let's take a little bit closer look at this XAML that it's created for me. You'll notice that the first thing we have is a window tag that contains everything else. This has a name, and it's called class, and this is XAML.window1. So this is actually a class called XAML.window1. Now, when this gets compiled, it's not going to actually compile directly into IL like you might expect. It's actually going to compile into something called BAML, or Binary Application Markup Language. Now, if we look over in our Solution Explorer, we see not only do we have a window1.xaml file, but we also have a window1.xaml.cs file. I'm going to open that up. If you've done anything with ASP.NET, this will be a familiar model to you. You have the markup, or the visual look and feel of the application in a markup kind of language, and then you also have a code behind where you take care of the logical interaction of those controls with each other. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to go back to this button, take a little bit closer look at our XAML. We could put the content directly into button here, and you see that it comes out as test. We also want to show you that we could create an attribute called content and put the same thing in it. Now, you might have expected that to be text instead of content. But this allows us to put additional types of content within the markup. So, for instance, I don't have to put just a plain string. I could instead put something more complex. Now, in addition to being able to use an attribute there, that attribute content described a property of the class button. We can see that this is system.windows.controls.button. So at runtime, the runtime engine is actually going to generate an object of that type with the properties I have set in the attributes. But we can also set those properties in another way. One is to use the class name here, button, dot the property, say content or something else. And we can put the content within this button here. So I could put just test in there again, and you see that test is in there, or I could put some more complex content. This is a composable content. So for instance, I could come in here and I could put something entirely different. I might want, something like an expander. An expander is a new control for WPF. I'm going to set one property on the expander. It's going to be the expansion direction. And I want it to go to the right. And I'll put something like, hello there. All right, so we've got a new control, and notice this control is actually contained within my button control. So the button will still act like a button. I'll still be able to click on it. But then I can also use this expander, which the arrow will show me that I can expand that and display the text, or contract it and hide the text on the button. All right, let's look at that actually in runtime. So I'll go ahead and run. Okay, here's our application. You can see that we have a button. It's got an expander control. The expander control works just as we expected it to, and it's still a button, and it's still got a click feature. All right. So now if we go back to our button, we might also want to put in something like a click event. That's my IntelliSense here. I'm getting an event there for my click. I might want to add something like a new event handler. There's my button click. I can hit F7 and head back to that code behind window if I want to, and you see that there's a button click event here as well. I could go ahead and say something like messagebox.show. If you're used to using Windows Forms, this will not be a huge transition. A lot of the same things that you used in Windows Forms are still here available in WPF. In fact, one of the nice things that you can do is you can actually host a Windows Forms control. So if you've bought a custom control or created a custom control, you can host that in WPF. You can also host WPF things inside of Windows Forms as well. Okay, so let's look just a little bit more about this composability feature. Here's my combo box. And just to sort of impress upon you all the things that we can do to compose things here in our XAML, I can put lots of different items inside of my combo box. I could put just a plain text block. That text block could be something different. It could look different. We could put, say, another attribute on it, maybe a background that was Alice Blue or something. We could also go ahead and put something else in here. Maybe we had a checkbox or something like that. And I can actually fill this combo box with several different things, including, if I wanted to, another combo box, which you might not have expected. I'll go ahead and give that a background, something significantly different, so we can see the difference between that. And then again, more items within that, maybe a couple more checkboxes and a radio button. But the point here is that with a composable UI, I can put lots of different elements nested inside one another, and really the duty of the control is to render its children along with whatever functionality is part of combo box. And it's not all about in the class combo box having the UI represented there. It's really about the functionality of combo box. All right, let's go ahead and run this one more time. You can see that extra extensibility that we've added in there. Our combo box should now have a text block in there that says test, and a checkbox. There it is, yes. And in fact, there's our other combo box. We can have a combo box inside a combo box, and everything works as expected. So, that is that, and you also might want to click on our button to show you that the button still does have that click event that we wrote. So it's a little bit about using XAML in WPF.